We've got the analysts in, and we're looking at the news stories making the headlines this morning. It's an interactive conversation. Would love to read your thoughts. The WhatsApp number is 0809 444 0981, and you can also tweet at Smooth981. We're streaming live on YouTube as well, so you can catch that live stream up on our YouTube channel, Smooth981.
That said, we say a big good morning to AB Bozimo. Welcome.
Hello, good morning. Fabulous new week of the new year ahead to everybody. Good morning, Mr. C, and everyone in the studio.
Good morning, Mr. C. And how are you today?
Good morning, Zibby. Good morning, Omatseye. Good morning, AB. I'm much better. And good morning, Lagos and the rest of the world. Let's look forward to a profitable and rewarding week.
And so just responding just to bounce off of what AB had mentioned, first working. So as it is, we've used up all the blanks that relates to first this, first that of the year, right?
Correct.
All right, so our eyes will come down now. We'll calm down and focus into 2021. So Mr. C, start us off.
Chicken price can come down.
Okay. Mr. C, the paper before you is the Vanguard newspaper, and let's see what it's looking like. The Punch newspaper, and the headline there, it says, Economy Education Leaders, Lagos Assembly OK's 2.267 trillion naira budget. It's now waiting for the governor's signature. But walk us through what you see, come through the fine lines, and let's know what it's all about. Good times ahead?
Interesting question, Omas. So the Lagos State's budget for 2024 was passed into law on Friday. And this was after the governor had paid the surprise visit to the retreat organized by Lagos State House of Assembly, incidentally, in the Federal Capital Territory. Now, the budget is christened the budget of renewal. I'm not sure exactly what they're renewing, but maybe they're taking a lead from the national budget, which is also headed by their man and their son. So the budget for 2024 is about 2.2 trillion naira. And we see from the details that 1.02 trillion naira will be spent on recurrent expenditure. So for the benefit of listeners who are joining for the first time, recurrent expenditure includes salaries, allowances, pensions, and the like, which happens on a regular occasion. And that's about 45% of the total budget. So what that means is that we're left with 1.22 trillion for capital expenditure, which is about 55% of the budget. Now, what that means is that there's only a limit. There's only so much the Lagos State government can allocate to capital projects in 2024. And some of the ongoing projects in 2024, some of the ongoing projects in 2024 include the Blue Rail, the extension, and even the Red Rail. And I dare say even the completion of the Lagos-Badagry Expressway that will take us into the Francophone countries. Now, when you do a further deep dive into the budget, there's an expected total revenue of about 1.84 trillion naira and deficit financing of 398.283 billion. Now, there are no details in the story as to how the deficit financing will be done, but off the top of my head, I can easily suggest that they're going to take loans. Now, whether these loans will be foreign loans or local loans remains to be seen. It's also possible that Lagos State issues another round of its own bonds into the capital market, but we'll watch this space and see what happens. Now, when we break it down further, we're looking at a total overhead cost of 527.782 billion naira. Now, that is massive when you take it as a portion of the total budget. That's easily almost 40% on total overhead costs. So were any attempts made to reduce the overhead costs of the Lagos State government? Were any attempts made to reduce the cost of governance? It remains to be seen because I haven't had access to the budget document itself. And I'm sure organizations that track these things will be looking deeper into the budget to see if any attempts were made vis-a-vis previous budgets. Now, the environment got 94 billion naira. Health got 156 billion naira. I dare say that's a little over maybe it's close to 10% or more. 199 billion for education, 50 billion for social protection, and public order and safety got 84 billion. Now, I'm not sure what public order and safety means, but when we remember that the Lagos State government, in addition to the Nigerian Police Force, has a special team called the Rapid Response Squad, maybe that's where the budget comes from. But then I also remember there's a Lagos State Security Trust Fund. So everything is still fluid at this point, and we will need to dig deeper into all these details to see whether the right things have been done. Now, to answer your question, are there better days ahead? For the sake of the larger nation, I want to tow the path of positivity and hope that there are better days ahead. Because we must remember, Lagos State is the economic capital, the finance capital, and the powerhouse of this nation. If Lagos State goes wrong for any reason, it will have a ripple effect on the rest of the country, starting with states close to its neighboring states like Ogun State. Ogun will feel the heat immediately. So fingers crossed, this is the second week of January. Let's trust and believe that they have some sort of semblance of an idea and they're willing and ready to execute it. So for now, judgment reserved. They've delivered the budget. Let's see how they implement it. And it will be good to know how the ratio, how they implemented last year's budget. Whether it was 60%, 70%, it would be good to have those details. And I do wish they would put all these details on their website. But for now, judgment reserved. We watch and see.
Maybe you've got a little something to add in.
Yeah. Yes. You see this huge funds, as part of the budgets for some of these sectors. I would just say kudos to Lagos State because it is the economic engine of Nigeria. And when you see these large numbers for recurrent, expenditure, allowances, salaries, and all that, I have no objection to that, as long as service delivery to the people also steps up. Now, think about a country like Saudi Arabia. I bet you we cannot count the number of zeros and commas in the salaries of their government officials, but the citizens there are living very well. So I think the average Nigerian has no problem with people earning money as long as they're giving good service. Let the state government focus on providing service for the residents of Lagos and let the economy grow.
So, Mr. C, just a quick one before we go over to Zibby for the next paper. What we're looking at, if Nigeria is running a budget of about 28 trillion, thereabout?
Correct.
And Lagos is doing just 2 trillion. You can see, I mean, that is about, what's the proportion of the percentage of the national budget?
I would say roughly off the top of my head, about at least 10% of the national budget. So it shows the importance Lagos does have, and indeed within Africa, because the Lagos State economy is reputed to be the 4th largest on the African continent. So without a doubt, Lagos is very pivotal to Nigeria's growth, Nigeria's prospects. And that's why I said if for any reason we don't get it right in Lagos, the rest of the country will feel the impact.
A subnational looking like a country. Zibby.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. C. Does seem like another increase might be looming. Telecoms operators in Nigeria have confirmed seeking approval from the federal government to increase call and data tariffs, and this is coming from Daily Trust.
Yes, I don't think this should come as any surprise to anybody because every business is set up for profits, and that businesses that are set up for profits are always in the business of seeking how to stay alive, stay afloat. And when the context in which they operate has so dramatically changed, we hear in this story that they're trying to raise their costs, their revenues by about 10%. When you consider that inflation has gone up to 28%, it means that on balance, they're actually trying to cut their intended income. They have approached the government, and for me, one of the most ridiculous things is that the government is telling them that they should justify why they need to increase the tariffs. Listen here, I'd like free calls and free data. Let's not get it twisted. I do not want to pay more. I do not want to pay more. However, I must be fair and understand that a business set up to provide service, first of all, and also make profit for the proprietors has a responsibility to ensure that they make money. For them, the operating environment has increasingly become more and more challenging. You know, we sit down almost anywhere in Nigeria, we make calls, they go to almost anywhere else, but there's a network of infrastructure, towers that must be fueled and powered and all that. It's getting more and more difficult to even get that done. I know that you might say they're powered with diesel, but I bet you the vehicles that take the diesel to them, some of them may be petrol powered. Think about the price increase in that space. The operators of those vehicles are also demanding for more salaries because they too are suffering what's happening in Nigeria. So they are making the request. I would tell you personally, in one of my networks, they have already increased the tariff. My last data plans had some naira attached to it. Nobody asked any questions. And on my part, in order to take part in this wonderful program, I had no option. I paid. So I don't know how much more they want to get, but I think it's a reasonable request, a reasonable conversation to be had by them with government. And again, I don't see how government in reality is asking them to justify it. They should ask what proportion of an increase should we have, and then maybe we can have that kind of a conversation.
Mr. C, is there something you want to add up to this not approval for increasing tariff?
Yes. So in addition to what AB said, which I agree with completely, it would appear that there might be some form of subsidy, even though it's invisible, because if the rate of inflation has gone up to about 28% as of last month, and they're looking to only increase their prices by 10 to 15%, 15% being the upper band of their request, that means there's a 13% differential. Who is bearing that burden? That's one. Two, now these telecom operators are being owed huge sums of money by the banks. And last time I checked, those huge sums had not been fully paid. So if they're not being fully paid and they're struggling under the very stressful business conditions that we find in Nigeria today, why is the federal government having to give its nod? Isn't the telecoms market fully deregulated? And if it is, then the government should have no part to play in that market. The prices should be determined by the forces of demand and supply, and people will adjust. So waiting for the federal government to give its nod is, in my opinion, untenable. And if they don't give it, then what happens? Are the telecom operators supposed to fold up and leave the country like other businesses have left? So really, what is the plan here? And we need more clarity from the NCC as to what the true position is. Is the telecoms market truly deregulated? If it is, why is the federal government having to give its consent to price increases?
Maybe.
I mean, he said it all. When you think about it, in a deregulated environment, even like the fuel market, we hear it's deregulated, yet everybody seems to go to the government. Demand and supply, yes, I understand government has a role in trying to cushion the effect on the masses, but I would argue that government officials are distracted with ensuring perks for themselves, and they have little or no time to think of the people. So it's just customary in this country for people to always go cap in hand, crawling to the government because they know the government, with one stroke of a pen, could literally wipe out their business. I think, Mr. C, that is why they keep going back to government to ask for what ordinarily should be within their remit to determine.
All right. Well, we see your messages. Please keep them coming. It's freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1. We have more headlines and more from the analyst as well. Stay with us.
It is still freshly pressed and smooth, 98.1 FM. Mr. C, we'll get over to you as you help us unpack what the Vanguard is presenting this morning. The headline, Plateau Killings. President Tinubu urged to sign Nigeria Hunters and Forest Security Service Bill. Help us look into this, and it's looking like, license for more arms, people to bear arms. Is this one of that silver bullet that would help us secure this country and ungoverned spaces?
Okay, thank you, Mas. So this is another outcome of the gruesome and senseless killings that were perpetrated on the 24th of December 2023, in which hundreds of Nigerians unlawfully and sadly lost their lives to attacks by criminal individuals. Now, the deputy commander of the Nigerian Hunters and Forest Security Service has requested that the bill, that National Assembly give assent to their bill so that they can fully carry out the functions given to them by law and tackle the criminals who continue to hibernate in the forest, which the regular Nigerian security forces are unwilling and unready to go into. Now, before I go further, I want to give some sort of proper background. Everywhere we have seen attacks in Nigeria previously, at least 85% or 90% of the time, the real cause of those attacks have been the discovery of natural and precious resources and the attempt by criminals to take over such areas to fully exploit them under the cover of attacks. Now, of course, there is a political angle to all of this, but when you think about it, look at the states that are repeatedly attacked. Look at the natural resources that you can find in such states. Then you go to some other states where natural resources are not so abundant, and they seemingly have relative peace. Now, I don't have a problem with this Forest Service bill being passed into law. But the question remains this: if it's once it's passed into law, they're fully funded, they're fully armed. If they do not get the consent of the man at the top to fully address the criminality that goes on in the forest, it will still be the same tale of all the other security agencies being unable to fully tackle this criminality. So the question will be, where's the Nigerian army in all of this? The Nigerian army is stretched so thin, it's unbelievable. They're operating now in at least 28, 29 states of the Federation concurrently at this point in time. So it's a miracle no foreign nation wants to attack Nigeria, because if they did, it would truly be interesting to see how we respond to such a threat. Now, why do these things continue to happen? We have very greedy and criminally minded people, both in the private sector and in government, that are determined to exploit the natural commonwealth of our resources for themselves. And it's interesting that just last night, I did watch a series on one of the streaming platforms that exactly mirrored something like this, where people were attacked under the guise of terrorists or bandits. And the truth of the matter was gemstones were discovered in the area, and this is the story of Nigeria. So yes, pass the Hunter and Forest Bill, you will then find clashes between different security agencies over jurisdiction. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with the governor of each state, because according to the Land Use Act, all land in each state is vested in the governor, and the governor is in charge of that state on behalf of the people. So he literally is a trustee. What steps are the governors taking to ensure that these sorts of criminal activities are brought or reduced to the barest minimum? It remains to be seen whether they are fully committed to this, when we find governors hibernating in Abuja almost every other day, leaving the business of day-to-day governance to only God knows who. So the people need to be more deliberate, hold their officials to account, and the security agencies must be made to account for the plateau attacks. Some sort of accounting needs to start, heads need to roll, because you don't find that sort of massacre happening in any other country. There's no investigation, there's no sanction, there's no Nobody's punished, nobody's suspended, nobody's dismissed, nobody's made to face trial in court. But it would seem that they've swept that attack under the carpet. We've gotten statements from the man in control, the man at the top, saying, God permitted it to happen. I don't understand what that means, especially to the families of people who have lost their loved ones. And to prevent such an attack from happening again, there must be some sort of example made. And until we get there, sadly, this will continue to reoccur.
All right, still on insecurity from Vanguard. Task Service Chiefs on Intelligence Gathering Techniques, NANS urges Tinubu.
You know, it's so coincidental that when I saw this story and I heard Nance, well-intentioned, speaking to the president to task intelligence chiefs, the very first thought I had was that, in all honesty, neither Tinubu nor the service chiefs can be everywhere at every time. And to me, the real request has to be for there to be sub-national security, call it state police, call it whatever, because sitting right here in front of the camera with you, I don't know what's happening 200 meters down my street, but somebody 200 meters down my street is very conscious of what's happening there. The same thing happens for the security chief, who is either in Abuja, somewhere in the air, attending a conference in southern Spain or something. And there are people in each state, adjacent even to our ungoverned spaces, who sadly sometimes are receiving letters of threats or are aware of passing convoys of either motorcycles raising dust that cannot be detected by anybody apparently. And those are the people who have to be tasked with intelligence gathering at the very least. We might leave other forces to come and fight and all that. That's a separate story. But intelligence gathering happens at a microscopic level. Even when you look at the movies and series, the informer is some seedy guy in the back alley somewhere who is giving the intrepid policeman information that can help them solve a crime. So telling President Tinubu, as I say, they're speaking because as students, they tend to travel. They have people who just graduated, youth corpers who are still in detention since last year, and so on and so forth. And each and every one of us is at risk. It's not just students. Every one of us who hits the road is at risk. But I think the call that needs to be made is for intelligence gathering to be localized. It is only then you can now, of course, not every intelligence can be taken at face value, but you can now scrub it and see the truth within it and help prevent some of these horrible attacks, just like the one we heard in Plateau, where some of our fellow brethren in Nigeria did not see this 2024 that we're finishing all the first about. They were killed, slaughtered, murdered. And somebody is sitting down somewhere right now, I'm sure in air conditioning, getting ready for a great Monday. It's unfortunate, it's unfair. People like that should lose their jobs, even if symbolically, because you need consequences if people are to change and do their work properly.
Mr. C, did you want to add something?
Very quickly, 30 seconds. It's always a mystery how the criminal individuals have such a vibrant and profitable informant system. But the security agencies that actually need this sort of system are unable to fully exploit it. It remains a complete mystery.
All right, let's look at a few messages. Idima Puza says, is it not high time an emergency is declared on insecurity in Nigeria? Terrorists have now become some sort of law. They kidnap on a daily basis and even collect taxes from farmers in some parts of the country. Government only pays lip service. Nobody is being arrested and prosecuted. And this one is from King Joe, and he says network providers already increased since last year. Josh says, please help me understand why a business needs permission from the government to increase tariffs. And Ajayi says the solution to the security challenge in the country should lie in restructuring the security architecture of the country to allow communities, local and state governments to set up their own police, and not in the creation of another federally controlled security agency that will go the way of the existing ones.
Mr. C, the Daily Post is what we need you to race down to and help us look at and see most often than not, it is the prayer that Nigeria would be better eventually. So let's pick up this story. Presidency opens up on Beta Edu's 585 million naira scandal, reveals next line of action. Is it getting any better anytime soon?
Sadly, it's too early to say it's getting better. Now, we must remember that this is a second member of the current administration that has been embroiled in corruption allegations within the past 6 or 7 days. When there was a coordinator of the Social Investment Agency program who was picked up by the EFCC and has been released on administrative bail. And she's been accused of wonderful things in about 2 months, because it's barely been 2 months she's been in office and she's already done wonderful stuff. Now, this is the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, and she's been accused of, we've seen documents suggesting that she requested the sum of 585.1 billion. Is it million or billion?
It's million.
Billion with a B.
Billion.
Oh, million.
Million.
I've seen
Mere
another
millions.
version of this story. Okay, anyways, 585. Let's work with million, requesting that it be paid into a private account, ostensibly for humanitarian and welfare work to be carried out in 3 states. Now, the question is this: the agencies under her ministry, do they not have government accounts in banks? Do they not have official processes and procedures or mechanisms through which they get money out? Now, this is on the back of the fact that she had recently declared that the first batch of 25,000 naira had been paid to about 15 million Nigerian households. And we continue to wonder here on this program, especially me, who these people are. Because sadly, we don't know anyone who's collected this money. And like I said previously, every Nigerian family has a poor relative, at least one, every single one of them. Now, beyond all of this, there's been no transparency in what she's done. Now, what we hear is the matter is under investigation, appropriate action will be taken thereafter. That can conveniently be taken to mean that next to nothing may come out of this. Because if she is in the good books of those in the presidency, then you can expect that this investigation will go on forever, and then they will then bring in statements such as the one attributed to the Accountant General of the Federation, where he was reported to have said that even though she made the request, that it wasn't granted. Beyond that oral declaration, there's nothing to support that position. And then it will further be brought out that she's new to government. She doesn't know the processes. She was misadvised by civil servants in her ministry, and she's been advised on the proper thing to do. She's been cautioned, and then we should all look away and continue to look towards the future. So, to be honest, I don't see anything coming out of this. I would truly be shocked if she sacrificed for this administration to look good, because remember, they have other things on their minds. They're looking for how to raise the revenue and bring in enough money for the federal government. So in a case like this that is not exactly open and shut, and there's no real desire to investigate, it will truly be a miracle if anything comes out of this story.
But just as we close up the story, the thing is, for someone being investigated or whose ministry is being under probe, should she still be in office?
No.
Well, to answer your question, AB is correct, but his answer is limited to serious countries where serious things are done properly. In Nigeria, she can remain in office. It's just an allegation. It's the people who don't like her traducers, who want to see her downfall, and she's committed to serving her fatherland.
All right, let's go on to some of the messages that we have coming through.
Let's pick up Joyce's messages here for us, and she goes, my network providers have increased data and call tariffs respectively. Why did they increase before requesting? So if this request is granted, that will be another increase. Now, wow, Nigeria, same way the discos increase electricity tariff without our knowledge. Joyce, calm down. Michael's message is up next. There is an intelligence department in the military who disguising as civilians to blend with the populace, whose salary and allowances aren't owed. The call to the president and the service chief to enhance their intelligence unit gathering. Next, we'll find King Joe from Surulere. How do we, the citizens, hold government accountable? Ask questions, more questions. Then this one, JP's message. We get away with murder in this country. Sad. That's JP's thought. Uju's message.
Veronica says, why not suspend all these government personnel while investigations are going on, rather than having them still be in office with their hands on all the evidence? What a country. When, as a country, will we act right? Dan Okuda, the best way out for better edu now is to throw in the towel. Cisco Delgado says, I will suggest that even the vigilantes should carry arms to curb this incessant attacks by hoodlums in various communities. And Joseph Menyi says, today we hear telcos pleading for hikes, which they've done already. Yes, God bless Nigeria. All right, thank you for listening. Thank you for your messages. And of course, special thanks to our analysts for joining us this morning on Freshly Pressed. AB and Mr. C, thank you so much.
Thank you. Agree, disagree, hit me up at AB Bozimo on all platforms. Have a wonderful year ahead.
Amen.